Uh, I'm going to reserve you to speak at my funeral, please God, after 120, because that was really something. I'm looking around at some of these wonderful faces, and I'm also seeing a lot of beards. So I usually am confident in being the longest bearded man, but as I look around here, I'm not sure about that anymore. Rabbi Richard's beard is wider than mine, so I got that on you, Rabbi. And it's wonderful to be here with all of you. And thank you very much, Rabbi Rodney, for inviting me. We'll discuss for a few minutes the concept of Teshuva and what that means, especially this time of year. So let me start with this. I think that one of the most difficult aspects of Teshuva is for people to truly believe that they can change and that they can be different than they were before. Most of us struggle with that because we have habits, we have practical habits, we have mental habits and emotional habits, and things that we get stuck in that we've perhaps tried to change on more than one occasion and failed. And so with time, the Yetzer Hara wants to get us to believe that we are stuck in who we are and we cannot change and we cannot grow. And so really off the bat, I want to begin with that. Off the bat, the first and perhaps arguably the most challenging part of doing Teshuva begins with a person truly believing and feeling within themselves that they can actually change and that they can become different than they were before. I'll tell you, I once did some research on something that it had a profound, lasting impact on me, and I remembered it for a long time. You see, it's like this. If you stop the average Joe in the street, the average Yankel in the street, and you say, Yankel, I don't know how to say this in Afrikaans, but you say, Yankel, look, thank God you seem like a healthy guy. You have a family, your family seems healthy, everything seems good. What would be the one thing in your life that would make you happy, delirious with joy, that would make you celebrate and just, inject happiness in your life like nothing else? What would be the one thing that could make you happier than you can ever imagine? And that happiness will last you, for the rest of your life. So for many people, the answer is winning the lottery. If I were to win the lottery and I would win, $100 million, what's that in Rand? It's like, I think 3.5 trillion Rand or something like that. Or if I would win $100 million or $200 million or $300 million, I'll never forget this. A couple of years ago, there was maybe it was about 2 years ago, one of the lotteries in the United States of America went up to like $600 or $700 million. And, it just kept going higher and higher and higher. And of course, as it keeps building, this national frenzy breaks out where people are literally, before the COVID days, they're just literally lining up around the block to buy these tickets. And of course, the more people buy tickets, the less chance you have of actually winning. And it became like this national phenomenon where everybody and their uncle were buying these lottery tickets. Everybody hoping that they're going to be the one to win this 100, 200, a couple of $100 million, which reminds me of a great joke. I'm going to interrupt myself with Rabbi Richard's permission and tell you a quick anecdote. So they tell the story of a woman who calls a rabbi one day and she says, Rabbi, I need help. You got to help me, Rabbi, please. The situation is desperate. And the rabbi goes, well, what's the matter, Mrs. Goldstein? Anybody here called Goldstein? Huh? No? Anybody here an attorney? Any attorneys? No attorney Goldsteins? No? Baruch Hashem. All right, because we're about to tell some jokes about attorneys too. So we got to make sure we're not going to get sued here. So anyways, but back to my Mrs. Goldstein story. So she calls the rabbi, you got to help me. What's the matter, Mrs. Goldstein? She says, my husband has been buying the lottery ticket for the past 40 years. Every week he buys a lottery ticket. No. What's the problem with that? She says, Rabbi, you'll never believe what happened. I'm sitting here with his lottery tickets, and he actually won $137 million. You got to help me, Rabbi. It's a disaster. No, the rabbi gives a schlep the board. You know, he strokes his beard. What's the problem, Mrs. Goldstein? I don't understand. She says, Rabbi, you don't understand? My husband has a weak heart. He's going to come home and discover that he won $137 million. He's going to have a heart attack and he's going to die. You got to help me, Rabbi, please. Oh, the rabbi thinks. He says, you know, I'll tell you what. Mrs. Goldstein, tell your husband on the way home from work, he must come and see me. Tell him I have something very important to discuss with him. He must come and see me on the way back from work. All right. Mrs. Goldstein, the rabbi says, and I'll take care of everything. All right, Mrs. Goldstein calls her husband. Oiving, honey, darling, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you had a one-on-one talk with the rabbi? And Oiving says to his wife, Mrs. Goldstein, Zogmir, tell me, bist du in ganzen Meshiga? Are you out of your mind? The rabbi is a glorified, unemployed, individual. What do you want from me and the rabbi? I haven't, I think it's very important that you have a one-on-one talk with the rabbi every now and then. You haven't done it for a while. I want you to stop off at the rabbi's home on the way back from work. It's very important. I'll make the appointment. Nu, was tut man nicht for shalom bayis? Right? Any husbands here? Was tut man nicht for shalom bayis? What don't we do for shalom bayis? She wants him to meet with the rabbi. No, he goes and he meets with the rabbi. So he walks into the rabbi's study. The rabbi sits down, offers him a cup of water. Tell me, Oiving, how are you? Rabbi, what do you want? What do you want, Rabbi? You want a check? You want $18? You want $36? What do you want? No, the rabbi says, I want to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in so long. Tell me, how are you? Rabbi, what do you want to know? How am I? My life is miserable. Terrible. How am I doing? I'm a Jew. Everything hurts. And everything, we're master complainers and kvetchers. Everything is a problem. What do you want to know? My back hurts and my feet hurt and I have high blood pressure and I have high sugar and my wife is driving me crazy. And what else do you want to know? The rabbi says, tell me, how's your parnosa? How's your livelihood? My parnosa, Rabbi, I'm a schlepper, I'm a shlemazel, I'm a shlemiel. I pay my bills most of the time, but I struggle, Rabbi. What do you want to know? Tell me, Oiving, the rabbi goes, why don't you ever buy a lottery ticket? Maybe if you buy a lottery ticket, you'll win. Oiving says to the rabbi, Rabbi, I've been buying a lottery ticket for 40 years. Every week I've been buying a lottery ticket. Nu, says the rabbi, did you ever win? Oiving goes, of course not. People like me, excuse me. Sorry, that was Rabbi Goldstein. That was Oiving calling. I got to turn off my phone here. People like me, says Irving, we never win the lottery. Goyim in Kentucky, they win the lottery. Some 35-year-old a goy living in his mother's basement, somewhere in God knows where, in somewhere in Midtown. Those people win. Me, I don't win the lottery. The rabbi goes, Irving, but maybe one day you will win the lottery. Maybe one day you will. Mr. Goldstein says, Rabbi, shlemazels like me never win the lottery. Never going to happen. The rabbi says, Irving, tell me, what if you do win the lottery? Irving says, Rabbi, if I win the lottery, I'll give you 50% of what I make, 50% of what I win. The rabbi says, really? He says, really. On the spot, the rabbi has a heart attack and falls down on the floor. So people will say, if I would win the lottery, if I would only win, my life would be wonderful. Turns out they did some research. The average lottery winner, more than 50% of them, 80% of lottery winners lose all their money, everything they've won, by the time 5 years have gone by since they won the lottery. A young man, a young woman, a middle-aged man, a middle-aged woman, on average, 80% of lottery winners will spend, waste all the money by the time it's 5 years since they've won. 50% within 3 years. A solid percentage of them end up in debt within a couple of years after they win the lottery. Some of them even end up in trouble with the law. There was a percentage, I think it was about 10%, who end up in jail. Bottom line, if you win the lottery, you have an 80% chance of losing everything you've won, of wasting it, of it ruining your life. Almost all of them complained later on that instead of this type of windfall, instead of this type of money, bringing them happiness and joy in life, it brought them misery and pain. In many cases, familial relationships fell apart, and they found themselves in trouble just a couple of years later. Okay, so I'm reading this and I'm thinking, like every Jew in the world who reads this thinks, yeah, but that's not going to happen to me, right? If I win the lottery, I'm gonna be part of the 20%, who will invest it and handle it correctly. But then I got really curious, fascinated actually. Why is the success rate so low? Why the 80% of people who win the lottery, why are they unable to hold on to any of this money? There was a story I read about one guy. He said he went into a store, he bought he liked a particular pair of jeans, he bought 300 of them. He liked a particular thing, he bought 400 of it. So they went to speak to psychologists to ask them, what is it that happens in the minds of these people that doesn't allow them to hold on to this type of a fortune? And this was, to the best of my limited understanding, this was the explanation. They said like this: you see, we all have a perception of ourselves that we carry around in our heads. We all have a certain picture of who we are that we walk around with in our own minds. We have a certain image of our place and our function and our role in the world. A person who one day goes from being not a wealthy man, not a wealthy woman, a person who goes one day from being of average financial means, just like that, to owning $100, $200, $300 million, what happens is the perception that they have of themselves psychologically doesn't match with the reality that actually is going on around them. So this dichotomy, this split develops where the perception I have of myself doesn't fit with what's going on. In my own head, I'm a schlepper or a schlemazel. And in reality, I'm sitting on a windfall of $200 million. After taxes, $100 million. Fine. A human being, they explain, cannot live with this type of dichotomy, cannot live with this type of conflict, where the reality I have of the reality I have of my own perception of myself doesn't fit with the reality of what's going on. Human being cannot live that way. Sooner or later, the two realities have to merge. One has to change to suit the other. So either I have to change my perception of myself and realize that I'm now a man of means, I'm now in a position of power, I'm now in a position of influence, I can change my life and the lives of the people around me for the positive. Or I have to change the situation that I find myself in, or I have to change the reality around me. You cannot, a human being cannot live for too long with this type of a split, a contradiction, this type of conflict between the way they perceive themselves and the reality in which they live. Rahman al-Islam, if a person cannot resolve that conflict, they go out of their minds. So to protect ourselves, we have to either change our perception of ourselves or change the reality around us. All right, here's the punchline. it turns out that it is easier to waste hundreds of millions of dollars than for a human being to change their perception of themselves. I want to say that again. It turns out it's easier. Human beings by nature will often, this is the way Hashem made us, by nature will often choose the easier path just because it's less work. Not a good thing necessarily, but it is within human nature. 80% of the time, human beings will choose the easier path rather than the healthier path. So it's easier for a person to waste, to just destroy, to tear through hundreds of millions of dollars and sometimes even end up in debt rather than change our perception of who we are. That type of internal work, to go inside ourselves and to truly be willing to believe in ourselves in ways that we haven't until now, this is incredibly difficult, especially if we feel like we've tried it in the past and failed. And so people will choose to lose, to destroy the money. So now the reality that they have around themselves fits with the picture that they carry inside themselves. To change our perception of ourselves is more difficult. In the Hasidic lexicon, we call this concept Yetzias Mitzrayim, which can be translated as leaving Egypt, or can be interpreted as breaking out of boundaries. For a person to perceive themselves as different, to see themselves in a different light, this can be one of the most difficult challenges of Teshuva. Now, I got a couple of minutes left, so I want to add this. I'm reading a book. It's called, maybe you've heard of it. It's called The Choice. The Choice was written by a Hungarian Holocaust survivor. She's a 92-year-old woman. She lives not too far from me in San Diego, who writes about her own experiences in surviving the war, in surviving the Holocaust. She went to Auschwitz when she was 16 years old. She has an incredible personal story. I actually encourage you to read the book if you have time. It's called The Choice. It's a fascinating story. She was on I believe, if I remember correctly, on the very day or within a few days that she arrived in Auschwitz, Mengele himself, that tyrant, that beast of a human being, that beast of a beast, Dr. Mengele himself, walked into her barracks and asked the women if there's anybody who has any particular talent. And some of the women who were there knew that as a 16-year-old girl, she was a professional dancer. So they physically pushed her forward and they told Mengele she's a dancer. So Mengele made her dance in front of him, 16 years old, within a few days when she first came to Auschwitz, in front of her for entertainment. And she did. She's forced to dance in front of Mengele, literally as a child. Anyways, she writes about her experiences. She went on to become a psychologist and to do a lot of work. She describes her own process in dealing with the trauma that she went through. It's a fascinating book. Again, I encourage all of you to read it. I'll tell you what grabbed me about the book, which is why I knew that I was going to read it and it was going to be something that I was going to study in depth. It was something that was written on the jacket of the book. And I want you to pay attention. Open your hearts. This is what she writes. She writes that in her lifetime, as she grew and learned to deal with the trauma and everything that she had been through, as she healed and grew, and after the war got married and had her own children and moved to the United States of America and developed her own practice and put herself through school and all the things that she did and she accomplished, she learned, listen to this, she learned to do the most difficult thing, and that was forgiveness. And then she writes this, she writes, the most difficult person for her to forgive was not Hitler, may God obliterate his memory, not Dr. Mengele, who sent her mother and father to the gas chambers, and tortured her almost to death and actually almost raped her. The most difficult person for her to forgive was herself. The most difficult person for her to forgive was herself. And that, she writes, was the most difficult and painful part of her progress. Because psychologically, she was holding on to self-blame for many choices she had made. She was holding herself, she had survivor's guilt, where she was wondering, why did I survive when everybody else didn't? Psychologically, she was holding herself hostage because of all the trauma she had gone through. And at some point in her life, she learned that she needed to let go and forgive herself and her own imperfections, even embrace them, and learn to embrace the important decisions that she had to make here and today. I want to apply this message to you and to myself today as we get ready for Rosh Hashanah. You know, we all gather in Shul on Elul and on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and we beat our chests and we say Al Chait and we say Hashamnu, and we cry and we beg Hashem for forgiveness. Okay? I have some news for you. This is my humble opinion. It's not difficult for us to get Hashem to forgive us. Hashem is very happy to forgive us. Hashem knows our imperfections. Hashem knows our challenges. Hashem knows our Yetzer Hara. Hashem gave us the Yetzer Hara for all sorts of divine reasons. I've found that it's much more difficult to get a Jew to forgive themselves. I've found that it's much more difficult to get a Jew to believe in themselves. I found that it's much more difficult to say to a Jew, despite the past, you can accomplish great things today and tomorrow. Put the knife that you hold to your own neck down. As Jews, we're fantastic at making ourselves feel guilty. You know what they say, if a Jew doesn't feel guilty, he blames himself. We're fantastic at feeling guilty, at blaming ourselves. Or who was it that said, there was a wise Jewish rabbi who said, a Jew never makes a fist. You'll never see a Jew makes a fist. And if a Jew does make a fist, you know what he does with it? He goes, ay, 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 oshamnu, bogadnu. He beats his own chest and makes himself feel guilty and miserable. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, even the month of Elul, my dearest of friends, it's not a time to make ourselves feel miserable. It's not a time to embrace, to wallow in self-pity and self-guilt. It's not a time to sit and peck through every single sin we ever did in the past and wallow in it and analyze it. And it's not a time for us to sit there and tell ourselves that the Rabbeinu Shalom is upset with us because of our past. Yes, we all have challenges. Yes, we all have things to do Teshuva for. Yes, we all have imperfections. But we also have potential for greatness. We also can do fantastic and amazing things. We also can make the world around us a better place. We also can choose life. We also can celebrate and look for things in life to be happy about. We can also bring sweetness and joy to people we come in contact with. We can all do great things. And if we don't see that, then we are like lottery winners sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars, refusing to accept what it is that we have and who it is that we are. Seeing ourselves as small, seeing ourselves as weak, seeing ourselves as incapable, when we're holding the greatest treasures in the world. Okay, next point. I want to add this. I read an article once, Rabbi Richard, do I have a couple of more minutes? Yeah? This is a long drosha and everybody else is on mute, so, What even Rabbi Richard is on mute. So what is he? You know. I once read an article that changed my life.
It's a big thumbs up.
Oh,
Please
it's a big thumbs up. Baruch Hashem. All right, I'll keep talking. I once read an article that changed my life. Okay, I'll tell you what it was. It was about a tennis coach. I don't even remember his name. That's how long ago I read the article. I don't know if he was Jewish or not. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter. Listen to this. This tennis coach coaches the top-seeded tennis players in the world. When I was a very young, very, very young child, I was fascinated by the game of tennis. I loved to play it. I was terrible at it. Rabbi Richard beat me every time the two of us were on court. We don't have to talk about that right now. I wasn't very good at playing it, but I loved watching it. In my day, there was a great player by the name of Boris Becker. I haven't followed him for many, many years. There was a player called Edberg. I don't know even God knows where he is. But anyways, I love the sport. So I'm reading this article about a tennis coach. He coaches the top-seeded players in the world. And every top-seeded player in the world wants this guy as their coach, because all of his players shatter the glass ceilings and supersede all of the expectations that people place upon them. So they sit down with him one day and they say, Mr. Coach, you've obviously got some secret. You've obviously got something that you're doing that nobody else does. Would you feel comfortable to tell us what it is? And if yes, can we publicize it? Can others emulate you? He says, yes. I'll tell you my secret, and whoever wants can emulate it. He says, I don't take any stump player, even if they're, from the top-seeded players in the world. I don't necessarily take everybody. I watch my players first for a few days. I study them. And then at some point, I make the decision whether to take them on and to coach them or not. What am I watching them for? He says, look, these are the best players in the world. These are the best players in the world. They have God-given gifts. I don't remember if he said God-given, but I'm adding that either way. They have God-given gifts and talents to play this sport. They're amazing at it. When they play, the whole world watches. But they also have areas of weakness. They also have blind spots. They also have imperfections. They also have areas in the game in which they are incapable and weak. For a couple of days, I study them. I see their areas of strength and I see their areas of weakness. If I take on the player and I decide to coach him, I tell the player we're going to train for X amount of time per day. Let's say 6 or 7 hours a day. We're going to train. During the hours of training and coaching, we're going to spend 80% of the time working on your areas of strength and 20% of the time working on your areas of weakness. And I put the players on the court, and let's say their forehand is their area of strength. I make them work on their forehand for 80% of the time that we practice. And if their backhand is their area of weakness, 20% of the time on the backhand. And the players themselves, say the coach, within a couple of days, all want to fire me. They say, Mr. Tennis Coach, you're wasting my time. Why am I spending 80% of the time practicing my forehand when my forehand is fantastic? 20% of the time on the backhand, I'm losing games because my backhand is weak. If they fire me, they fire me. But I tell the player, on my watch, on this coach's watch, he says, on my watch, 80% of the time we're going to work on your area of strength. Some of them fire me, and off I go. But some of them don't. Some of them stick with me. And an amazing thing happens. The next time they get onto the court to play their professional games, they destroy their opponents. They destroy them in ways that they themselves are caught off guard. And they always come back to me afterwards and they say, Coach, I don't understand what happened. I was struggling with this opponent for years or for God knows how long. I trained with you for a couple of months. I get on the court and I vanquish him. Boom. Blow him out of the water. How? What happened? So I turn to the player and I say, Chochem, you don't win a game with your area of weakness. You don't destroy your enemy with your weakest link. You don't win games by bringing your weakness to the table. You have gifts, my friend. You have talents. You have a almost superhuman ability to play this game. You have areas of power. You need to develop those. Spend 80% of your training time developing your areas of strength, and then get on the court with your opponent. Of course you'll destroy them. You'll destroy your opponent. You'll win the game because you've now gone from a great player to an unbelievably awesome player. Do you need to also spend time working and curbing your area of weakness? Yes, of course. We need to be responsible about this. Yes, of course. 20% of the time is enough for that. Yes, if your opponent manages to place the ball in an area of weakness, there's a chance that you will fail, of course. But if you develop your areas of strength, if you develop the areas in which you are powerful, then you will own the game. And you will be victorious over that which challenges you. This was his article. This was his interview. In short, what he's saying is, his position, his technique is different. I spend, says the coach, 80% of the time working with my players' area of strength, 20% with their areas of weakness. All the other coaches, he concludes the article, all the other coaches that I know do the opposite. They spend 80% of the time developing, working on the player's area of weakness to strengthen that, and only 20% of the time working on the player's area of strength. I reversed the seder, I reversed the order, and so this is why it is. Now, I read this and I thought, there's one more point to this. There's one more point. Imagine if you're a player and you're coaching, these players train for hours every day. Imagine if you're training for hours and 80% of the time you're working on your area of weakness. By the time the day is over, in your mind, you feel like a bad player because you've been working for so many hours in an area in which you're weak. On the other hand, this coach understood that you empower a person 80% of the time in their area of strength. When they get off the court, they feel powerful and they feel like a winner. What do I want with a tennis coach? Ich bin nicht kein tennis coach. And not planning to become one, at least not in the near future, although I heard the pay is not that bad, so maybe I'd be open to it. But what do I want from the story? I think it's an incredible parable for Avodas Hashem, for how a person should serve Hashem in this world. We all of us, have been gifted by Hashem with areas of strength. Every human being, every Yid, every person who's on this Zoom conference and any other conference that Hashem put in this world has an area in which they are at least one. In fact, all of us have many areas in which we have God-given gifts and talents, things that we can do to contribute to others, to ourselves, to the people close to us, to the people far from us, that are incredibly powerful. And you know what we do? We spend 80% of the time. We also have areas in which we are weak. We also have areas in which we are lacking and wanting. And so the Yetzer Hara tells us to focus 80% of our energy on those areas in which we're weak. The Yetzer Hara wants us to feel guilty. The Yetzer Hara wants us to feel weak. The Yetzer Hara wants us to feel incapable and tell us, I didn't do it yesterday. I didn't do it last week. I couldn't do it the year before. I probably can't do it now. The Yetzer Hara wants us to feel guilty and incapable and focus on our areas of weakness. And you know what happens when you focus on areas of weakness within yourself? You also focus on areas of weakness within others. When you see other people, you start going, this one is no good because of this, and this one is no good because of that. And sooner or later, we paint ourselves and those around us in dark colors. Instead, the meaning, the power, the ability of Teshuva, as this coach articulated it, is, for God's sake, embrace the powerful. Embrace the positive. Look inside yourself. Find the greatness. It's there. And if you haven't found it, I promise you, you haven't looked hard enough. And when it's there, focus at least 80% of your energy, 80% of your time on that, and do something with it. Choose, in the words of the Torah, choose life, choose warmth, choose happiness. When you engage with others, look for something positive in someone else. You know, one of the things that rabbis do is we often give marriage, informal marriage counseling, right? For many years, I wondered why people come to rabbis. Why don't they just actually go to marriage therapists? And until I figured it out, because rabbis are much cheaper. So it's much easier to go there. So one of the things, you know, we sometimes we sit with couples. And I can tell you, I think this is the make it or break it point in a marriage as well. Every human being has flaws. Every human being has areas in which they lack. Every human being has faults. You want to look for them? I promise you, you'll find them. The only exception is me. If you don't believe me, ask my wife. Everybody else has areas in which they're wanting. Same applies with our children. And most importantly, same applies with ourselves. We can spend our lives feeling guilty. We can spend our lives feeling disappointed in ourselves. We can spend our lives feeling frustrated. We can spend our lives feeling angry, and we can find legitimate reasons for all those things. Or we can do tshuva, and we can choose life, and we can find within ourselves a life to celebrate, things to be happy about, ways to impart warmth and joy within others, and challenge ourselves every single day to make our lives happier in any way we can, to find one more person to smile to find one more person to reach out to with warmth and love, and to light one more candle in this dark world. We can do it over and over and over again. That's the choice that we make. You know, the Lubavitcher Rebbe once met with Benjamin Netanyahu years and years ago when Israel sent him to be the Israeli ambassador to the UN. And one of the things the Rebbe told him, which he quoted so many times, is he said, the Rebbe told him, the UN, the United Nations, is a very dark place. The Rebbe said this in the 70s, I believe. It's a very dark place. But you know what he said to him? He said to me, if you walk into the darkest of rooms, the darkest of places, the darkest of halls and the darkest of caves, and you light one candle, no matter what type of place it is, the whole room will be filled with light. You're one person. You're one Jew. You're one individual. You're going into a dark place. All you got to do is light a candle. Don't sit and kvetch. Don't sit and complain. I shouldn't say don't. Don't only sit and kvetch. Don't only sit and complain. Don't wallow in the tzoros. Or as a wise man once said, stop telling God how big your problems are. Start telling your problems how big God is. Stop looking around the world and shaking your head and going, "Oy, Gewalt, this is a disaster." Instead, we ask ourselves, where's the one place that we that I and you and that every one of us can light a candle, one candle, and bring light. If we can't daven in a shul yet, how can we reach out to people without davening in a shul? How can we bring, if we cannot go to places we cannot go, how can we bring light and warmth to the people with whom we are quarantined? Our own family members, the people we're closest with. How can we spend more time with them? Always look for the possible and the positive. It is there. The most important part of tshuva is for a person to believe in themselves that I can. I want to conclude with, back to this book that I'm reading. This woman writes that after all of the abuse that she had been through, but by the time she was liberated by the U.S. forces, actually. She writes, by the time she was liberated, she couldn't walk. She was lying on the floor, emaciated within the brink of death. She was literally eating grass in order to survive. She wrote that for the rest of her life, she found a way to use everything that she had been through, all of this, the trauma and the abuse. She found a way to use it to help other people. And when people would come to her, she actually counsels. She gives therapy to soldiers who have PTSD, who have post-traumatic stress disorder, and who have gone through all sorts of things. She used the experience that she went through to bring healing to other people. And in this, she writes, she was able to bring healing. She was able to bring healing to ourselves. So I was asked to speak about tshuva, and this is what I wanted to say. The call of tshuva it's a challenge to every one of us, where we are being challenged by Hashem, by the Rabbi Shalom, to wake up tomorrow morning and ask ourselves not in which area are we wanting. Ask ourselves not in what have we failed in life. Ask ourselves not just what do I feel guilty about, but instead we ask ourselves every morning when we wake up, really the only one important question that we have to ask ourselves every day. And that is, in which dark room can I light one candle? In which dark corner of the world can I bring just the tiniest amount of light and warmth? In which part of my own life or the lives of those close to me can I bring healing and comfort and kindness and love and a real connection between Jews? That's it. And if we can live that way, I dare say we've mastered the most important element of Teshuva. I want to wish you all a Kesselman v'chasima tova, a good, sweet year filled with blessings, filled with good health for all Jews all around the world, for all humanity all around the world. Wherever there is anyone that needs a blessing for good health, Hashem should bless us all with good health. Hashem should bless our families. Of course, Hashem should bless this incredible, wonderful shul, the shul in Emerensha, with your beloved Rabbi Rodney Richard, and all of you. Hashem should bless you and your families from my heart. I wish you a year filled with brachas, filled with brachas, both the regular brachas and Shabbos brachas, because I just heard that there's no Shabbos brachas. So please God, year full of brachas and kichel and herring, and health and gesund and nachas from our children, and all the most wonderful things. Hashem bless you all.
Rabbi Kesselman, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your light. Thank you for sharing your light with us. Thank you for sharing your strength. And we can certainly all see your strength, tremendous strength you have, and that you bring to the community, that you bring to the world, you bring to the Southern Hemisphere, you in the Northern Hemisphere. And that's certainly the silver lining of COVID, being able to share on Zoom with so many speakers from all corners of the world. And Reb Moshe Kesselman, beautiful, beautiful thoughts, just putting a whole other perspective on Teshuva, where we normally think about focusing on areas of weakness. all that regret and our shamnu beating our chest. Let's try and focus on the areas of strength, the areas where we can really develop those God-given talents as Rabbi Kesselman spoke about. And maybe if we've got time, Rabbi Kesselman, maybe for one question from someone, because I did promise. If anyone wants to unmute and ask one question.
Only one, that's it. No, I'm kidding. You can ask me as many questions as you like. It's 11:20 in the morning for me, and I'm a rabbi, so I got nowhere to go and nothing to do when I get there.
Hilton Lowenstein has got a question.
Oh, Baruch Hashem. Hilton, show us your lovely face, please.
Anyone got a question? Maya, question. Aubrey, no question.
Stan, you're on mute, Stan.
Rabbi, I'm so proud we've got a South African in Los Angeles.
Wait, who's talking? I don't see. Who's speaking?
There is.
Stanley. Shalom
I'm
Aleichem, Stanley.
Shalom Aleichem. I'm so proud of our South Africans. Look where we are. Look where we're all over the world.
Mamish. It's amazing.
It's amazing. And I mean, I'm a doctor, and I mean, the South African doctors all over the world, it's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Not a question, but we're glad for the statement, Stanley.
Stanley, what's your family name? What's your surname, Stanley?
Katzef.
Katzef?
You know what a katzef is, Rabbi?
A katzef.
What's a katzef?
A butcher.
Yeah.
And you're a doctor.
And so I work with butchers, eh?
1 second, just 1 second. Let me get this straight. Wait. 1 second, everybody. Wait 1 second. You're a doctor and your name is Butcher?
Rabbi, he's a verschlaffener.
Stanley,
Hashem is not a moil.
A piece of unsolicited advice, my friend. A piece of unsolicited advice. Either change the career or change the name. Sweetheart, we got an issue here. Please, God, tell me you're not for the love of God, please, God, tell me you're not a surgeon. Rabbeinu Shalom.
No, I'm not. I'm an anesthetist.
Oy, gewalt. Listen,
any final thoughts, any final questions, guys, before we let Rabbi Kesselman go? Any final questions?
So glad I met you, Stanley.
Rabbi?
Yes.
My name's
Helen. Go for it.
My name's Helen. I live in Vereeniging, but I came from Emmarentia. So my dad, whose also name was Stanley, always used to say, you've got to get to know someone. You have to, he said, in every person, you have to find something in the person that you like. Doesn't matter what color. He said there's no such a thing as a bad person. And if ever I used to say something bad, he said, Helen, you have to get to know someone. You have to find something. Comment?
Well, okay. Your dad told you this? I don't see you, so I don't know who I'm speaking to, but I definitely did hear you. Your dad told you this?
Correct, yes.
Okay. In the language of the books, in the language of the Torah, we'd put it this way. We'd say every Jew has a neshama. Every human being has godly energy within them. Now, in some people, it's easier to find the neshama. In some people, the neshama is closer to the surface. In other people, you got to dig through some dirt until you get to the neshama. In some people's cases, you got to dig through a little bit of dirt. In some cases, you got to dig through a lot of dirt. I dare say, in some cases, you need a tractor to really, and a chisel to really dig through the encrusted stuff around people's hearts. But yes, I agree that every human being created by Hashem, every human being who is created by Hashem has godliness within them. And yes, in that sense, every human being possesses, there's something wonderful, at least potentially about every human being. When you say there's no such thing as a bad person, to be honest with you, my mental alarm bell goes off, because unfortunately there is such a thing as bad people, and maybe they're none of them in Emerentia. Maybe Dr. Katzov took care of them all, but there's definitely a couple of them in Los Angeles. And these are people that you have to be very wary of and very careful of, because if you get too close to them, they can hurt you, and they will. Any of you know the story about the frog and the scorpion? You're all just sitting here, so I'm going to keep talking. So it's a very important story. So the story goes that the scorpion wants to cross the river, but the scorpion can't swim. So he sees a frog, and he says to the frog, "Listen, I need you to take me across the river." And the frog goes, "How am I going to do that?" Scorpion goes, "Simple. I'll jump on your back, and you'll jump across, and you'll take me across. There's good food on the other side." And the frog goes, "Was meinst du? What do you think? I'm stupid? If I let you on my back, you're going to bite me, and we're going to die. I'm going to die." The scorpion goes, "You are stupid. I just told you I can't swim. If I'm riding on your back and we're crossing the water and I bite you and you drown, you die, then you drowned. And if you drown, then I drown because I can't swim." And the frog goes, "Wow, I never thought of that. That's really smart. Okay, come on board." So the scorpion jumps on the frog's back, and they start crossing the river. And of course, halfway through, the scorpion stings the frog, and the frog starts to die and drowned. And the frog goes to the scorpion, I don't understand. You just told me that if I die, the frog dies, then the scorpion die too. And the scorpion goes, "Yeah, it's true. We're both going to die." So the frog goes, "So I don't understand. So then why did you do it?" And the scorpion goes, "Why did I do it? Because I'm a scorpion." And that's what scorpions do. So with regard to your question, your father's wisdom, your father's eternal wisdom notwithstanding, my alarm bell goes off, and I want to caution myself and all of us not to be unrealistic about this. There are unfortunately scorpions out there. And the scorpions, if you let them on your back or anywhere near you, they will bite you, and it will hurt. And there is no way to prevent that, unfortunately. Now, in the case of the parable, do these human beings, do these Jews have souls within themselves? Yes, they do. Do they have the ability to reach into that? Yes, they do. But until they do so, I would caution you to be very careful of them. Maybe some of you have people in your lives who suck energy out of you, who drain you, leeches in that sense. And these may be people who are manipulating you in one form or another. And part of living as a healthy person, part of living, making decisions from a position of strength, is being able to choose wisely which people we allow into our homes and into our hearts, and which people we don't. So the answer to your question, yes, everybody has goodness somewhere within them, some in actuality, some potentially, but exercise tremendous caution. Choose wisely in terms of which people you allow truly into your homes and into your hearts.
And on that note, Rabbi Kesselman, I believe we did choose wisely for this evening. I told everyone kicking off this three-part series, we had to start off with a bang, and we certainly did with you, Rabbi Moshe Kesselman. Thank you so much for giving of your time. I know your time is very precious, your family, your community, these weeks leading up to Rosh Hashanah, all the greetings that you so warmly and graciously gave to us. We reciprocate, we give right back to you, your beautiful family,
Amen.
Your kehillah, just brachas of health, happiness, gesund, everything for this coming year. It should really be a Shana Tova U'Tuka. And please God, it doesn't only have to be in times of COVID that we can connect. I look forward to being able to do this in the near future. Thank you so much. And indeed, thank you everyone for joining.
Richard, to Rabbi Moshe, just quickly. Rabbi Moshe, we had in South Africa yesterday the opening of the South African Jewish Border Deputies Chatzim Conference, etc. The guest speaker happened to be Dr. Egar, and she spoke about her lifestyle. They showed a short snippet of her being interviewed by Oprah Winfrey first. She was the most incredible, amazing speaker about her life story, about her book, The Choice. And if anyone from the participants here tonight missed it, they have missed one of the greatest talks you could ever wish for from the most incredible woman. I mean, to know that she wrote this book at the age of 90, which was 2 years ago. And also, she looks absolutely incredible for what she has been through physically. What a pleasure it was to listen to her last night. I just want to say, if anyone can and pick up a recording, there's a recording, I'm sure, done by the Jewish Report, by the Board of Deputies of her talk. It's worthwhile listening to her.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You and a gesunte Jahr.
Hashem bless you.
Gesund.
Dr. Katzev, you're my new favorite doctor. God bless you. Bleibt alle gesund. Bleibt alle gesund.
Have a good night, everyone. Rabbi Kesselman, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi Kesselman. Thank you. Sei gesund.
Thank
Shana
you.
tova to everybody. Thank you.
Outstanding, outstanding talk.
you.
Outstanding.
Thank you.